And
Yeah.
speaking of live, we are live here on The Breakdown and at All Rise News. My name is Allison Gill, AG, Mueller, she wrote. You probably know me as, I have many, many names. And joining me is a man with just one name, a recognizable name. His name is Adam Klasfeld, and he is the owner and operator of the independent media outlet called All Rise News, which honestly is, as a one-man operation, going out and, taking part in court hearings and being in the courthouse and reporting out and doing all the traveling it's just astounding that you do all this independently and we really, I know everybody appreciates it so much, so we can get on the ground, like blow by blow action from court hearings that are super important for a lot of the high profile cases that you're following. And I wanted to ask you today, because you sent me a text and you're like, we've got some updates in the Kilmar Abrego case, in Mr. Abrego's case. As we all know, Mr. Abrego was taken and put on a plane to El Salvador and spent time in the Seacoast torture prison. He was beaten and tortured in inhumane conditions. And we Judge Boasberg tried to bring him back to the United States because the DOJ admitted they made an error in deporting him because he had an order from a court in the United States, an immigration court, not to be deported to El Salvador, but he was. And so they brought him back, but not because they made a mistake. They brought him back to kind of cover their tracks and stop a discovery hearing that could lead to contempt in Boasberg's courtroom. And they brought him back by charging him with two ridiculous crimes from a traffic stop in 2022, where everybody back then let him go, without as much as a traffic ticket. And you've been covering this case from soup to nuts since the beginning. And there's a lot of outpouring from the public for information about what's going on with Mr. Abbrego. So I would love to hear what the latest updates are in the case and where you, Mr. Independent Media from All Rise News, are headed this week and how people can support that trip. So let's talk about updates in the Abbrego case.
Thank you so much, Allison. Well, this week is going to be another court hearing for Mr. Abrego in Nashville, Tennessee. He's charged in the Middle District of Tennessee because, as you said, Allison, this is a case over that 2022 traffic stop. That it stems from that 2 counts related to smuggling allegations, not trafficking allegations, which is commonly said by Kristi Noem's Department of Homeland Security. But what is expected to happen at this hearing on Friday, there's no clear agenda, but there are many things in front of the judge. For example, the judge has a pending motion on selective and vindictive prosecution because there are now 3 tracks of this case, 2 civil cases and the criminal case. And since the last time when Abrego was released from criminal custody, briefly was reunited with his family before being taken into immigration custody, there was an offer on the table, a plea offer. And it was kind of one of those offers they gave to ABC News recently, where you can do this the easy way or the hard way, where you plead guilty, we send you to Costa Rica, and you plead not guilty and you insist on your right under the Bail Reform Act to be released, then we're going to try to send you to Uganda. That was presented as evidence of selective and vindictive prosecution for asserting his rights. We'll see if that comes up at Friday's hearing. There are other issues that are pending before the judge. Now, Abrego, at this very moment, is in immigration custody in Virginia because, pursuant to his habeas case, trying to block his deportation, now it is not Uganda. Now the Department of Homeland Security is trying to send him to Eswatini, which, by the way, is the only absolute monarchy left on the African continent. So that is where things stand. But because he is detained in Virginia, his attorneys say it's very hard to prepare for trial. So that's happening on another. That's another motion pending before the court, and there's a third motion. We'll see how many of these are adjudicated, but they're all very important. Uh, is to get Secretary Kristi Noem to stop disparaging Abrego before trial. Keep posting tweets, keep accusing him of things that he isn't charged with in the indictment. As a matter of fact, the very interesting thing in the most recent motion, most recent status update by the defense attorneys, they mentioned that Kristi Noem, and this is true, this happened in another case, was asked by Todd Blanche, the second top official in the Justice Department, asked Kristi Noem to take down all of her posts that were violating the presumption of innocence of a different criminal defendant, Congresswoman LaMonica MacGyver in New Jersey. They took that down, and they said, well, but they're not doing that with Abrego. And so here's the thing: it's innocent until proven guilty, not innocent until Kristi Noem declares you guilty.
So did they use that example of LaMonica MacGyver to illustrate selective and vindictive prosecution, or to illustrate that the gag order is in order?
Absolutely. To illustrate that the gag order is necessary. That right now it seemed that in New Jersey, the Congresswoman they were probably fearing that she would have prevailed on that. So they asked her to the Justice Department asked her to take it down preemptively. They were late to that, by the way. By the time that motion was filed, I noticed that all of the posts that were sliming the Congresswoman were still up. They took them down about a couple of hours after the motion became public, but they took them down. All of the posts about Abrego are still up. There's not been any pending requests to actually take them down. And so we'll see if the judge might impose a gag order. We'll see if the judge is going to rule or hear arguments on selective prosecution, or if this will be a routine pretrial hearing. He hasn't really set an agenda, but that's why I'm heading down to Nashville on Friday to find out just what he does.
I've noticed a lot of folks in the comments saying that sound isn't working and things are freezing. I just wanted to let everybody know I'm not having a problem hearing you or seeing you,
Yeah.
Adam. Everything seems smooth on our end, so I'm not quite sure what that is. Solar flare, Russians, I'm not sure. But anyway, I wanted to ask you about these disparaging comments that Kristi Noem and Tom Homan and the president keep making, that you brought up, that were mentioned in the motion for a gag order, and are because they're saying, he's a human trafficker. He's a drug smuggler. He smuggles guns. He has solicited minors. He had minors in the van with him, and I think that date was actually the birth date of one of those people was actually altered, but I'm not going to get into that. That one that says 2007 made to look like a 1 made to look like a 7. It's just like really janky. But so is all the evidence in this case. Most of it is double or triple hearsay. And it's like, I have a friend whose cousin has a boyfriend that saw Ferris Bueller pass out at 31 Flavors last night. It's just, it's all so horribly put together. And judges, magistrate and federal alike have agreed on those points, that this is just the evidence is pretty thin. At least they thought so in the hearing for a detention hearing and the detention hearing, which actually never happened. But there was a hearing about having a detention hearing with both a magistrate judge and a federal judge. The federal judge came back and said, we don't need a hearing. There might have been minors involved, but it's not enough to go to a detention hearing on this. But regardless, I'm curious as to, I know that these disparaging statements by huge administration officials with massive audiences are used in the gag order. Are they also used in the vindictive and selective prosecution motion? Because
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
it seems to me that, by that kind of lens, it's sort of evidence that they are selectively and vindictively prosecuting it.
Yes, absolutely. They appear on both motions because the fact is the selective and vindictive prosecution motions hinge on the argument that he is being punished because he fought back. Because when he was spirited out of the country onto a plane in defiance of a judge's order, that he had capable attorneys take the government to court and win all the way up to the Supreme Court. And that's why he's being punished. And they have quotations from top DOJ officials all the way up to Todd Blanche supporting that argument. So some of them are press interviews, but some of them are these social media posts, press releases. But what you were saying with Christy Nome, that those are the things that, as you said, Allison, she's accusing him of things that he's not charged with. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I want to just hammer home this point, muddying the waters with what he's actually charged with. Smuggling as a criminal charge in the Middle District of Tennessee, the sentencing exposure for that is about 1 year, on average. Trafficking is a totally different charge. And that's what Ghislaine Maxwell is charged with, and they're being very friendly with her. But with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, it's a very different thing. Trafficking is exploitation, smuggling is transportation. That is how the distinction was
Mm.
was explained in the first ruling, saying that the government hasn't met the burden to detain Abrego before trial. So that's the first one. The stuff about soliciting a nude from a minor, that was something that was rejected from Judge Holmes's ruling, that it wasn't that wasn't an allegation that met the muster for her to keep him behind bars pending trial. All of the other allegations of where you had cooperating witnesses who are being incentivized by the government to cooperate because they are, we've talked about this so many times, Allison. One of them is a two-time felony convict who's been deported 5 times. The other one has been convicted of felonies as well and has been deported multiple times. Both of them are getting immigration assistance and criminal assistance from the government for cooperating. And they said things to the order of, "We heard that he was acting inappropriately toward girls," and that was said by these cooperating witnesses to one FBI agent who passed that on to another FBI agent. And I saw one tweet from Christy Nome saying, it has been reported that, or it has, where she links to, I believe, a New York Post story or something like that about her own rejected allegations in court. And she's doing this drumbeat against a criminal defendant before trial. That's why they're seeking the gag order. They took it down when they tried to violate the presumption of innocence of a U.S. Congresswoman. Will they? They're not even
That's kind of like
asking.
consciousness of guilt, right? Like,
Right.
we know this is
Right. Well, I mean, it's not fair play. It's a dishonorable way of doing. And the thing that's really, this did not happen. I don't want to overstate this. In Trump's first term, he was routinely mouthing off on Twitter about criminal defendants, but you didn't have official government accounts going after a criminal defendant. You didn't see the need for motions like these all the time, and you're seeing this happen in multiple cases. And of course, we're talking day after Trump is demanding the prosecution of his political rivals now in all capital letters openly on social media. So this is, I keep thinking about the timing of this hearing because, as I said when we were starting this, it's this Brendan Carr at the FCC saying to ABC, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. And the government saying to Kilmar, Abrego, Garcia, if you plead guilty right now, well, we'll deport you to a human rights respecting country like Costa Rica. If not, we will find some of the most notorious human rights abusers in the planet to send you to. That is not the way a justice system works in a democracy.
Yeah, agreed. And real quick, you said Barbara Holmes. That's the magistrate judge. But that's not the judge who's going to be holding the hearing this Friday, right? That is a federal district judge. Remind us of who that judge is.
That is a magistrate judge. Now, when the case is first assigned, it goes, the district judge refers certain pretrial proceedings to the magistrate. And she was the first person to hear the government's motion to detain Abrego pending trial. And Abrego won multiple rounds of the government's attempt to detain him pending trial. But two tiers of judges rejected that. First, Judge Holmes, and then the district judge who will be presiding over the trial and who will be presiding over the upcoming hearing, Judge Crenshaw. So this case is currently before him. He's been very accommodating, I would say, about Kristi Noem's attacks on Abrego pending trial. He has not ruled out taking action against her. I would say he sent a shot across the bow last time, saying, "I don't know if I have the power over the Department of Homeland Security." I think he's trying to maintain a clean record for if and when he does issue a gag order. But he's the one presiding over Friday's hearing. There's one more wrinkle that I should put out there. There is a pending motion because Abrego is being detained in Virginia. There is a possibility that the hearing will, in fact, be conducted remotely. But there was a motion there from a long time ago. It's never been decided, and it seems we are less than a week away. I think it's going to happen live in Nashville.
Yeah, and I think I remember there being an order to keep him within 200 miles of where he was detained in Virginia so that he wouldn't be sent to Texas or Louisiana because that would be too far away from Tennessee where he, might need to make an appearance. So I think that's kind of why they put that 200-mile limit on where he could be sent. But I wanted to ask you, because I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was his criminal defense attorney, Sean Hecker, who said if there was ever a case for vindictive and selective prosecution, this is it.
Right.
And so I will be very glued to your feed on Blue Sky and watching your Substack at All Rise News for how that hearing goes. And I remind everybody, because a lot of times we'll watch a hearing and the judge will attack the defense, the good guy, let's say. Sometimes the good guy is the government, sometimes the good guy is the defense. But they'll attack and attack and attack and ask questions and ask questions and ask questions. And I just kind of want to remind everybody that if you are following along with that particular hearing, that just because the judge, Emmett Sullivan is famous for this,
Right.
goes hard after who you think the good guy is, doesn't mean that they're going to rule against the good guy. To me, that's always been indicative of the judge making sure that every single thread is followed and every single loose end is tied up before he rules against the person he went after really hard in a particular hearing. So I want you to maybe address that. And then also, one of the motions talked about how this was just detaining him in ICE custody is just punitive. Again, punitive for him exercising his constitutional rights. Because now with the, no bail for immigration hearings and the length of time it takes for immigration hearings to go through the immigration courts, he could be in prison for up to 6 months. But after 6 months, I think there was a previous Supreme Court ruling that says then it becomes punitive. But there was a recent Supreme Court ruling that said you can detain people indefinitely. So I'm just a little confused on the timeline for how long he could be in prison, because I believe you told me his trial is scheduled for January.
It is, it is. So so this is the kind of, the fact that the case is playing out in multiple jurisdictions. It's happening on a quick timeline in the habeas case in Maryland as well. I believe that there was some, mention of the prosecutors and the government on the civil side, um, saying that they didn't want to face a very constitutional issue that you had mentioned. And I don't believe that if the case goes to trial on time, we'll see what happens. But one of the things that Sean Hecker said, the lead criminal defense attorney for Abrego, is that it's because they're not having access to their client. They're worried about being ready on time for trial. There was with the criminal defense team, you have uh, so this is going to happen on Friday. There will I think early October we're going to see the habeas case start up again. There's
And
going to be a hearing on that.
I just want to interrupt you really quick. The habeas case, where he's challenging his deportation to Uganda or now this other country, is that in the immigration courts or is that in federal court?
There, this shows the complicated nature of this case. That
Because the
habeas
reason I
case,
ask
that
is because
habeas case,
immigration
absolutely.
judges work for Pam Bondi, whereas federal judges work for the judiciary.
Correct. The habeas case is before Judge Paula Zinis in federal court. He also, at the same time, there's a separate proceeding happening, but I have no information about what new developments is happening with that. Perhaps it'll be revealed on Friday. That's just the nature of this. The fact that once he's released, they put him right into immigration custody. We're saying that we're talking about this as though the criminal trial is going to go to trial in January, and that's the expectation. But the government has not said, they have not ruled out taking him out of the country again. That's what these habeas proceedings are about. Will they, one, whether he will be, as you said, be allowed, whether the judge will order his release from immigration detention, but also whether the judge will issue some sort of order about the government's plans to deport him to another country, whether it's Eswatini or whether it's Uganda. This is all playing out very quickly, and the government has not made any representation that they will let this case go to trial. And this could be a very embarrassing trial for the government.
Oh, it would be so embarrassing.
I mean, the two main, we've spoken about this so many times, Allison, the two main witnesses against the government. Now, let's say they find something from this 2022 traffic stop. Well, they're going to hang their hat on two witnesses who I have been one. The first one has been deported from the country 5 times and has made a deal with the Trump administration. The Trump administration, this anti-immigration nativist administration, their star witness is this guy. They're giving help so he doesn't get deportation #6 quickly. So even if, in the best account of their evidence, let's say that they persuade a jury beyond a reasonable doubt to find Kilmar Abrego Garcia guilty of a crime that might send him to jail for about a year. They are the top witnesses against him are people who, by their own admission, would be much higher up on the chain. It would raise a lot of questions for a sustained period of time as to why the government is using these witnesses to attack someone who is accused of being a driver. A
Right.
driver.
It would be like Jack Smith making a deal with Donald Trump to testify against Steve Bannon in the January 6th assault on the Capitol.
Honestly, it would be like Jack Smith convincing Donald Trump to testify to someone who peacefully entered the Capitol, like not one of the violent rioters,
Not even
one of the
Steve Bannon.
very
Steve
low
Bannon's too
level
high on the list.
cases. Absolutely.
It's the
So
dumbest thing.
so that's the absolutely, we will, if we get to trial, we'll see what happens. We'll see what what evidence the government has dug up. We do know that the evidence was such that the former head of the criminal division in the Middle District of Tennessee resigned the day that Kilmar Abrego Garcia was indicted. And we know that that former criminal division chief's former deputy now represents Mr. Abrego as local counsel. This is a case that whatever happens at trial, if it goes to trial, will have many embarrassments for this administration. And that's, it's it's reasonable to think that's why the government is not guaranteeing that it'll even get there, and why they are fighting so hard for the right to deport him before it even happens.
Yeah, they don't want to go to trial. That's why they made him a sweet, sweet deal for Costa Rica if he just pled guilty and would GTFO. So we have a couple minutes left. I just want to ask you what you're going to be looking for in this hearing. You said there are multiple outstanding motions. We know the motion for vindictive and selective prosecution. We know the motion for a gag order. What other motions are on the table that the judge might address? Because he hasn't put out an agenda for this hearing.
Right.
But what are some of the other outstanding motions besides vindictive and selective prosecution and gag order that you might be looking for?
Well, there's going to be discovery. There's a discovery motion, the adequacy of the government's disclosure of the evidence, the ability to, as I mentioned earlier, contact and prepare for trial with their client who's in Farmville, Virginia. And the reason for that is because, as you said, Judge Zinis said that he must be within 200 miles of the courtroom and not sent outside of the continental United States, given the history of this case. So we'll see. I'm going to be looking for whether new information has emerged about the government's plans, whether right now we haven't had new information since we're looking at Eswatini now disclosure about have there been updates with immigration proceedings? Will any of the motions that we've been discussing right now be adjudicated? Was this going to be a scheduling hearing? I think that it's important to be there because there's just so much. There's so many issues of profound consequence at the table at this very moment because even if they discuss the presumption of innocence. There are attacks on presumption of innocence every day, and we're seeing it all the time with Letitia James, the firing of a U.S. attorney or forced resignation, I should say, coerced resignation of a U.S. attorney in Virginia at the very moment that ABC News had in their bombshell story found that he did not find evidence to charge. So didn't find evidence to charge, you're out. I'll replace it with my insurance attorney. So the issues about the presumption of innocence, the issues on the table about the potential gag order, the access to counsel, the
Compelling
vindictive
discovery.
prosecution. But yeah, but there's a pending selective and vindictive prosecution motion in Congresswoman MacIver's case in New Jersey. And to one point that you made right a little bit earlier, Allison, you had mentioned that Sean Hecker said, if there's any case for selective and vindictive prosecution, it's this one. The reason he said that is that it is extraordinarily difficult and extraordinarily rare to win a selective and vindictive prosecution motion. And this case will be a real test case to see whether in the age of Trump 2.0, when the vindictiveness is open and notorious when you have a parade of government officials accusing a defendant who is presumed innocent before trial of crimes that he is not charged with, and the ones that he is charged with. That it's a very important test to see, well, is that standard really, does it have teeth? Do selective and vindictive prosecution motions uh, stand a chance of curbing the impulses of an administration that is going to act openly in a kind of vindictive manner?
Yeah, or will it become Section 3 of the 14th Amendment? If ever
Well
there
said.
if ever there was a case for disqualifying someone for participating in insurrection, I would think we would have had one. But yeah, if this particular administration can't be found to have vindictively or selectively prosecuted people, then we might as well just get rid of the motion altogether, because no one's ever going to win them. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really looking forward to this hearing. I want to remind everyone that the only reason that in the third track of of Kilmar Abbrego case is the immigration case. The only reason he's able to seek asylum now is because he was mistakenly sent away by the Trump administration, and now he has been in the country for less than a year. The reason he wasn't granted asylum in 2019 is because he had been here for more than a year. So we will see if that turns around and bites the administration in the ass for resetting the clock on asylum, or if the immigration judge that will be hearing that case is a Pam Bondi sycophant who isn't going to, who they work for the executive branch, for the Department of Justice, and not like what Judge Crenshaw or Judge Sinise or Judge Barbara Holmes do, which is they are independent working for the federal judiciary. So I look forward to this. I think everyone was going to want to pay attention because, as you said, many of the open motions, pending motions on the table here in the Abrego case have huge consequences, not just for Mr. Abrego, but for many, many people who are facing the same sort of eventuality from this particular administration. And so if you just follow Adam Klasfeld on your social media, wherever you get your social media, I'm a Blue Sky person. You can follow him there. And if you definitely subscribe, you're going to want to subscribe to All Rise News to get the updates, because they go right into your inbox and you'll know exactly when it happens. You'll know if the judge rules from the bench, or you'll get a sense from Adam Klasfeld's reporting maybe how this judge might be viewing some of these uh, outstanding motions before he comes out with a ruling. So subscribe to All Rise News. If you feel like it, you can subscribe to The Breakdown too. I'll be following Adam Klasfeld on this for these hearings on Friday. And if you have the means to financially support Adam Klasfeld's work at All Rise News, he pays for all of his own lodging, all of his own plane tickets, all of his travel, so that he can be there in the courtroom to tell us exactly what's happening as it's happening. So if you have the means, please support him and support independent media. Do you have any final thoughts before we get out of here today?
Oh, thank you very much, Allison, for that. And I really appreciate that because, yes, I do travel to these places because I think it's important to be on the ground for that, and that does require support. So thank you for saying that. I would say I would just echo your remarks about the issues that are being contemplated now will resonate beyond Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And as I mentioned, Congresswoman MacIver, she has the pending motion on the same topic. We'll see whether it has teeth, and that's why it's important to be there and find out how it lands when it's happening.
Yeah. And if you want to learn more about the failures this week of the Department of Justice to secure indictments against political enemies, tune in to my live show called The Breakdown. It'll be on the live Midas Touch Network feed on YouTube at 3:30 Pacific today, 6:30 Eastern. Woot woot. I'm going to be going over all that and the absolutely ridiculous, Adam, I know you read it, lawsuit from Donald Trump against the New York Times.
Oh, incredible. I will
His sui
I want
generis
to remark
zeitgeist
on
of The Apprentice is the best thing ever for our times, and pictures of his book and his TV shows, and he even says he's made millions of media appearances, including WrestleMania 5 and All My Children. It's
Well, the judge's takedown of that was just incredible. But I
of
will
course.
say one thing. There have been many things remarked upon about that lawsuit, from the fact that he's talking about the fact that Times endorsed Kamala Harris. But there's one detail that I think was very underappreciated. The third article that he claims is defamatory. He claims it's defamatory that the Times accurately quoted his former chief of staff calling him fascist to the core. And, that really says something. You quote someone accurately calling him a fascist, that's going to be $15 billion.
Well, they don't want us to quote Charlie Kirk accurately because it kind of blows their deification and martyrdom of what happened there. People have been fired. Karen Attiah from the Washington Post for accurately quoting Charlie Kirk, and I know a lot of Matthew Dowd was dismissed from his job, but Brian Kilmeade, who wants to authorize the involuntary execution by lethal injection of unhoused people, he's fine. So thank you. I think my point here is thank you for supporting independent media because it is so urgent that we have it now more than ever. So Adam, thank you for your work. Support Adam if you can. You can support me at The Breakdown. All my content is free. You can subscribe for free. But if you have the means, like I said, give us a buck or two. It would really help us out. And you can, feel good about supporting independent media because right now in this media atmosphere, this corporate media atmosphere where fewer and fewer billionaires are in charge of most of the news that we consume, I think it's super important to support folks like you. So thank you again for your time. Thanks, everybody. Hit the little heart so that we can get like algorithmic love. Like, what is it? Smash the heart button. So that we can get a little algorithmic, I don't know, dipsy doodle. I don't know how things work. I'm a Luddite, but we really appreciate everybody being here today.
Thank you. Very much appreciate everything that you do and everything you said and everyone tuning in.
Awesome. Everybody, we'll see you soon. Tune in to All Rise News, tune into The Breakdown, and we'll catch you next time. See you later.